September 1941. The heart of the Soviet Union trembles under a new kind of war. From the Western Front, German bombers soar across the sky, not to support advancing troops, but to annihilate the Soviet industrial base deep behind enemy lines. Moscow, Leningrad, Kazan, cities once safe from frontline fire now feel the scream of air raid sirens. Flames rise from steelworks, chemical plants, rail hubs. Entire blocks collapse into ash and smoke. The Luftwaffe is not just attacking, it is hunting, systematically, ruthlessly. And for Soviet planners, it's clear, if the war is to be won, the factories must survive. But how do you hide a factory the size of a city block? The answer will not come from generals, but from artists, architects, and engineers. A secret order spreads, build illusions, create entire districts of deception, paint cities that do not exist, construct weapons that cannot fire. Outsmart the Luftwaffe, not with firepower, but with misdirection. This is the story of how the Soviet Union waged a silent war of shadows, where plywood became armor, where smoke and paint saved steel and lives, a war where the front line was drawn not in trenches, but in the air above illusion. The plan was audacious, even absurd. Build fake cities, fake factories, fake trains and fake airfields. Convince the German Luftwaffe that what they saw was real, and lead their bombs away from what truly mattered. But this mission required more than soldiers. It demanded vision, architects who understood perspective, painters who could craft shadow and light, set designers from Moscow theaters, masters of illusion now sent to war. In workshops and barracks they began, plywood frames, canvas roofs, barrels for chimneys, women painted doors that never opened, men hammered beams into empty fields. Every fake rooftop had to match the skyline. Every false street had to align from the air. Mistakes would be deadly. So teams studied aerial photos obsessively. Camouflage wasn't just visual, it was psychological. Factories were mimicked down to the window panes. Even smoke was choreographed, rising from hidden fires to sell the lie. They called it visual masking, but it was more than concealment. It was strategic theater, a new front in the war. And as the Germans prepared their next wave of destruction, the Soviet Union prepared a stage where every illusion had life or death consequences. They were not soldiers, but they fought like soldiers. Their weapons were brushes, canvas, rope, and wood. They came from theaters and studios, from art schools and design offices. Now they built illusions for survival. Perspective drawings became blueprints for deception. Cardboard was folded into tank hulls. Roof lines were painted with precision, down to the angles of shadow. Whole teams labored to simulate life. A working factory shift, a bustling rail yard, a convoy preparing to move. All of it false. Yet it had to look true, especially from the sky. Even sunlight was considered. Dummy vehicles were polished to catch a glint of morning light. Smoke machines ran on carefully timed releases. Choreography replaced combat. This was performance on a scale never seen before. Entire city blocks were constructed and destroyed, all on cue. The Luftwaffe never saw the builders. They only saw the result, targets that screamed, "Bomb me." It was a strange kind of bravery. No medals, no rifles, only the knowledge that a convincing shadow could save thousands of real lives. And in war, perhaps that is the highest art of all. Across the Soviet landscape, new cities rose, not of brick or steel, but of illusion. Fields once empty now bristled with smokestacks and walls. But these walls were made of plywood, the chimneys, barrels with smoke pumped from hidden fires. Rail yards appeared overnight, complete with wooden boxcars and painted tracks. From the sky, it all looked real. That was the point. These were ghost factories, elaborate, lifeless shells that lived only in the minds of German pilots. At night, lights were arranged to glow like shift work was underway. Windows flickered. Trucks moved in staged patterns. Even footsteps were recorded and broadcast to simulate activity. Meanwhile, the real factories, the ones producing tanks, planes, and bullets, stayed quiet, dark, hidden. Each fake structure served a purpose. Some lured bombs into forests, others stood near rivers, drawing fire away from bridges. This wasn't chaos, it was design. Deception became geography. Entire industrial zones were mirrored, moved, or replaced. And as the Luftwaffe flew their missions, confident in their maps, they dropped tons of explosives on phantoms. The Soviet Union, scarred but standing, had weaponized absence. And in the silence of empty fields, the illusions did their deadly work. The results came not with celebration, but with silence. Bombs fell, but on shadows. Entire raids wasted on painted rail yards, on plywood factories, on wooden tanks. The Luftwaffe reported successful strikes. Photos showed smoke, impact craters. But the real factories were untouched. They kept working, hidden beneath camouflage or relocated underground. Workers returned to their stations. Machinery hummed. Trains carried supplies to the front. Lives were saved by brushstrokes and carpentry. In German war rooms, confusion deepened. Reconnaissance photos didn't match results. Intelligence became noise. The maps they trusted were flawed, filled with ghosts. Even when the deception was discovered, it was too late. Resources had already been diverted. Morale had already taken a hit. For the Soviets, the proof was in production. Tanks rolled out of invisible plants. Bombs dropped on canvas did not stop bullets made in silence. Deception wasn't perfect. Some real sites were hit. But enough survived. Enough to continue the war effort, to resist, to endure. And in a war of attrition, survival is victory. The question wasn't whether the illusion was seen. The question was whether it was believed. And for a critical moment, it was. When the war ended, there were no medals for illusion, no statues, no grand parades. The names of those who painted rooftops and built wooden tanks faded into obscurity. Their work was classified, buried in archives, dismissed as curiosity. But without them, entire cities might have burned. Thousands might have died. They saved lives not by taking them, but by shaping what others saw. A rare kind of heroism, quiet, hidden. Their tools now sit behind glass in forgotten museums. Brushes, model pieces, smoke generators, photos of false towns. Visitors pass by without understanding the risk each stroke of paint once carried. Today, few remember Operation Obman. But its legacy lives on, not in monuments, but in the cities it spared. In the silence of fields never bombed, in the rail lines still in use, and in the idea that even in the darkest chapters of war, creativity can be a shield. War is often measured in force, in fire, in blood. But this war had another front, one drawn in shadows. And in those shadows, illusion became resistance. A war waged not with bullets, but with belief. And belief, sometimes, is enough to turn the tide.